Hey everybody, this is Kairi091 alongside Brian Lutz for this week's episode of Kairi's CardsCast.
For those of you who aren't with me, I did a peace sign while I did that.
I kind of figured. Anyways, guys, we got a pretty rockin' show for you up today. We're going to take a look back at last week's game against the Chargers. We're going to take a look ahead to next week's game against the Raiders and all the position battles and whatnot that the Cardinals are dealing with the upcoming cuts after the Raiders game. After the Raiders game, they have to cut down to 75, right? Yeah, 75. Anyways, and we're also going to take a look at some broader NFL stories and some NFC West junk and even some non-NFL stories. But we're going to get started with our top 5 segment. This week's top 5 is going to be our top 5 personal favorite Cardinals of the University of Phoenix era. Lutz, why don't you get us started with your number 5 top favorite Cardinals of the University of Phoenix era?
That's my sound effects with our cool post-production we do. So top, I was just like, I'm fantasizing these cool radio sound effects. That was what I had for that.
No, it was definitely what I got. Go.
Top 5 Cardinals, U of P. Starting with number 5, we got Anquan Boldin. I didn't even want to necessarily put this guy on the list, but it's just like, you got to pick 5 good Cardinals players, man. So what are you going to do? Bolden's on that list, man. Okay, number 4.
I want to do number 5 first.
Oh, okay. You do number 5 first.
My number 5. My number 5 is Carlos Dansby. When I first started watching the Cardinals, all I was interested in was the crazy high-flying offense that was present at the time, and Carlos Dansby was the first player that I remember thinking, man, that dude's a badass, and he played defense.
Dude, his name's Carlos with a K. Pretty much sums up badass.
Number 4. Hit it.
All right. Number 4, I got Tyrann Mathieu. Reason being is I had to pick somebody from this modern Bruce Arians squad, and when you're competing against like a Super Bowl squad, it's kind of hard to pick, those guys. And it should be Patrick Peterson, but he just hasn't given me enough reason yet to like put him on the list.
I went with Q at number 4. I went with Bolden at number 4 because it was his. I remember everybody raved about Fitz by the postseason, and rightfully so. But I remember Anquan Boldin bringing down some crazy circus catches during the regular season. That made me think, man, do all football teams have a bunch of receivers that can do this?
Answer no.
No, they sure don't. How about number 3? Who do you got?
Number 3, I got Darnell Dockett,
Ooh.
And this is just to kind of cover that gross stretch between like the Super Bowl team and like the Bruce Arians modern team. Darnell Dockett really helped carry us through like a lot of seasons between the peak of Wisenhunt and Arians, and he was like one of the only we still had unnamed wide receivers, but Dockett. Okay,
my number 3, I got Calais. The mighty Calais Campbell, giant beast of a man. Not just because of his prowess on defense, which it is incredible. I mean, he's
and not just because of his silky deep voice.
that was pretty solid. But also because of his special teams play. I remember, I think it was a playoff game. I believe it was the Giants, and I was just following Calais on Twitter, and they were lining up for the game-winning field goal, and Calais tweeted out, "I would block this kick."
And you know what? I agreed with him.
I was like, yeah, I believe that you would.
That's funny, too, because, that's not necessarily like a Calais disposition kind of thing. He's normally not that type of aggressor. He seems like such a soft guy.
But he was right. He would have. Number 2.
Yeah. Number 2, gotta go with my man, Kurt Warner. I don't know what else I need to say about that. I think it's getting obvious how this list is shaping up here now.
Yeah, I gotta go with Kurt Warner at number 2 also. I mean...
do we need to say things about it, or is
it a crazy electric passing game, dude, that just really cemented? I mean, I'm not gonna say I wasn't interested in the Cardinals before Warner, but cemented my status as a lifetime Cardinals fan.
It made being a Cardinals fan not just an exercise in masochism. And also, he holds the top 3 Super Bowl passing yards of all time. I mean.
That's right. Kurt Warner holds the top 3 spots for passing yards in a Super Bowl. That's a true stat, guys. Look it up. Number 1.
The Steelers. Anyway, okay, go on. Number 1. Drum roll, please. Larry Johnson.
Why do you call him Larry Johnson? Is there a story behind that?
a Cardinals game back in this is years ago, man. And then the sportscaster on national television is like, and the great grab by Larry Johnson. And me and my friend looked over at each other, just yeah, that's Cardinals fanhood. You got a superstar wide receiver, and they still don't know his name.
They know it now. Number one pick from Kairi, Larry Fitzgerald. Need I say more? I think not.
There's nothing to say.
No, anyone listening to a Cardinals podcast already knows why.
Yeah, they would unsubscribe if you put Warner over Fitz. Fitz is a super Hall of Fame lock. He's our biggest star in the history of our team.
So I asked for a couple of people on Reddit, on the subreddit RAZ Cardinals, to give me their top 5. And without getting into too much detail, I'm just going to read them off to you. A user named Soon2Barm picked 5 Kurt Warner, 4 Patrick Peterson, 3 Tyrann Mathieu, 2 A-Dub. Man, how do you not make it on our list? Number 1, John Skelton. And then he wrote, haha. No, he wrote, haha, JK, Larry Fitzgerald. And then we have
guy, huh?
Yeah, Sir Shanks-a-Lot picked his top 5. Calais Campbell, Kurt Warner, Darnell Dockett, A-Dub, and number 1 he had Anquan Bolden. He didn't even put Fitz on his top 5. I don't know, but anyways. So that's let's move on. We got what's the next segment, Lutz? What are we talking about next?
We're going to recap this Chargers game that just went down, some things we liked about it, some things we didn't like about it, which Kairi will talk about, because I can only talk about what I liked about it. I like David Johnson, and I like J.J. Nelson, so I liked a little bit of our rookies, like always. And I think it's cool that Arians is really trying to give the rookies some plays, give them some confidence. So that's what I liked. Like seeing DJ out there and J.J.
I heard that I can't remember the exact phrasing of it or whatever, but I heard that JJ Nelson had to ease up to get underneath that pass. He was gonna go to the house with it. It was a go route. He was gonna go to the house.
Yeah, so it's interesting how Carson's gonna have to adapt to the fact that people have rockets on them now. You just try to get a good lead on your throw, and he thought he overthrew it. So that tells you something.
What I liked out of it, and this is something that wasn't I attended the game. I wasn't watching it on TV. It was a pretty amazing experience. But anyways, I'll get into that another time. There was a play. It was early on, sometime in the first quarter, and Fitz was lined up. It looked like he was lined up at tight end. He was right over the right tackle's shoulder, and I'm thinking okay, what's number 11 doing right there? I thought maybe it was a slot play or whatever. And the ball snapped, and sure enough, Fitz goes up and grabs a linebacker and blocks a linebacker, and I'm okay, this is interesting. And I was so busy watching Fitz that I didn't even see Palmer drop back and complete a pass for a first down. I was busy watching Fitz tangling with a linebacker. It was pretty cool to see that, and those are the kind of things that don't show up in the box score. So that's the kind of stuff that you'll never hear national commentators, because when a national commentator gets ready to talk about the Cardinals for their weekly Cardinals segment, all they do is review the box score and then make up some bullshit based on that.
Tell me if you follow this, and people listening also, if you can kind of identify with this. People use fantasy football, and I know this is kind of a segue, but people use fantasy football as a barometer a lot of times for the value of a player. But if you think about it, if you have a really balanced team or a really deep roster, why the fuck should any of your players be significant in fantasy? You don't have a guy who has to do all of the work at wide receiver. Larry Fitzgerald should not be a dominant fantasy player. Why would you want one of your players to have to be doing so much of the workload for your team? So I think it actually shows the Cardinals' strengths that it's who would you pick? Andre Ellington? No. Larry Fitzgerald? No. Carson Palmer? Maybe. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, there's only one quarterback, but if Carson Palmer's having a great day, you're going to see decent stats on Fitz, Nelson, Floyd. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's the problem with the rest of the people in the league, is because, of course, Arizona's a small market. It wouldn't even make sense for somebody to pay really close attention to their roster nuances. So a lot of the only impressions you get are through whatever exposure you had, maybe fantasy football. That's where people see stats and they know to talk. You don't see a lot of Arizona players making you win during fantasy football. So, of course, you can be Cardinals ain't that good. Andre Ellington's not even worth drafting in fantasy, and that's what I base my NFL predictions on. But it's we know the Cardinals are good, and you know that you had stats. Oh, they're 24th in the league in defense and 24th in offense. And it's yeah, they're also 24th in their draft selection because they were in the top 10 fucking teams. So
and they also finished 11-5, despite not having a quarterback.
Yeah. Did they have the 24th best record in the league? No. So having the 24th offense and defense by the metric that was being used is kind of asinine if you're using that as like the quality of the team.
Yeah,
There's so many intangibles. There's so many how players. Larry Fitzgerald picking a tight end. That's not going to show up Larry Fitzgerald picking a linebacker. That's not going to show up on a stat. But how fucking valuable is that? That could have made that play.
It very well may have. The linebacker that he picked up was not being picked up by the O-line.
Anyway, all you people pumping stats and like that's where your whole angle is. I know you have to do that after your team loses. I know it makes you feel better. I had Cowboys fans doing that to me crazily last season.
Yeah,
even though they didn't have Tony Romo, they were just like, "Oh, we have great stats." I'm like, "Cool."
Fortunately for us Cardinals fans last season, we may not have had the best stats, but the only stat that actually matters, like points scored versus points allowed in a game, the Cardinals won that matchup 11 times out of the 16.
The win stat.
So anyway,
your points number exceed the number of your opponent. Okay,
in a single game, yes, and the Cardinals won that.
It's a simple mathematical equation. Anyway, go.
Anyways, so that's looking back at the Chargers. There's some NFC West stuff I want to talk about. And first,
it was like pretty much not looking back at the Chargers. It was me getting annoyed by people undervaluing Arizona.
There you go.
Okay.
But that's every day as a Cardinals fan. That's all we do.
You know who values our team though? The conference does.
Yes,
they don't fucking think that.
And I'll tell you who I value. I value the respect and dignity of Cam Chancellor. I want to speak direct. I know Cam recently subscribed to my channel, so I know he's listening. Cam, I'm talking straight to you now. Everyone else, close YouTube or whatever. This message is for Cam. Cam, seriously, listen anyways. The Seahawks are trying to play you, man. They're trying to disrespect you and play you for a fool. The only way you're going to get any respect in that organization is, I know you said you're prepared to hold out for one season, but if you want them to take you seriously, you're going to have to hold out at least 2 or 3, maybe even 4 seasons to get the Seahawks to know you mean business.
Cam, my dude, listen up, bro. Russell Wilson, he's going around telling people you spell your name with a K because you're a Kardashian, bro. I don't know if you like that or not, but I wouldn't even stay on that team, dude. Why don't you take a vet min over in Arizona? We'll treat you right. We need some more depth in our freaking safeties, you know.
I heard you were changing your last name to Chancellor with a K.
All right, KK. Chancellor with a K. Get out of here, dude. Okay. All right. Okay, we got to move on. The other NFC West story I wanted to talk about. Oh, wait, we got to talk about the sportscaster asshole.
We are. That's the other NFC West story I want to talk about. There's a local show. It's a fine show, Off the Edge with B Train, starring Bertrand Berry and his co-host, whose name is very seldom even mentioned on the show, but he's around. His name's Andy Greenberg, and he's a good guy, a good sports writer. I like his work. I've read some of his articles and stuff on ArizonaSports.com, and he's a pretty good guy. But there's been a lot of like blowback recently from Cardinals fans on Twitter and whatnot because Andy Greenberg is a real life Seahawks fan, and he's like not ashamed, or he doesn't like deny it or try to hide it or anything like that. So I feel like it's possible for Andy Greenberg to do an effective job as a commentator while also retaining his status as a Seahawks fan. I don't feel like that's a problem. So that's how I understand the argument that Cardinals fans want to see Arizona's media build a culture around the Cardinals, and I get the other argument that there are no Cardinals fans in the radio in Seattle. If you go listen to local Seattle sports talk, you're not going to hear a guy on there who admit, yes, I'm a Cardinals fan. That guy doesn't get a job in Seattle. But it really doesn't bother me because Andy Greenberg's a good journalist. He writes good material, and I enjoy his commentary when he's sitting alongside Bertrand Berry. I don't like his football team that much, but anyways.
My turn?
Yeah. What are you gonna bitch about Andy Greenberg, or do you have another NFC West story?
Well, I just want to say B-Train would be like the worst prison nickname possible, dude. Call him a B-Train. Yeah.
Okay.
Suck, man.
Got it. All right. Go. Moving on. What else is going on in the NFC West?
I'm just going to throw that out there, though. It's like there's another Cardinal sportscaster. God, I wonder if any of this stuff will ever get back to them since we're sort of putting it online. Her name is Jenna Jones, and this just kind of plays into what you're talking about, where like she identifies as a Packers fan to the point where like her Twitter handle literally is Jenna isn't a bird. I actually said something to her about that. I'm like,
is that why that's her name?
Yeah, dude. And I'm like, you do sportscasting for Cardinals, and you literally have your handle saying like, "I don't root for your team." It's like, get the fuck out of here, then.
I thought. Wait
like,
a second. I thought she meant something else by that. I assumed that Jenna isn't a bird was like you know how British people refer to women as birds. You know, like I thought it was like how women are like, don't call us chicks or whatever. I thought that's what that was. I didn't realize it was a Cardinals thing.
It's a sports reference. It's stupid though, and like I think you and I have always dealt with that. Simply being from Arizona, when you're from Arizona, like you cling to things that make your state somewhat noteworthy. Like Alice Cooper is from Arizona. Michael Jackson possibly owned a house there along with Cher, but we don't know for sure. Shit like that. So all you want is like a sportscaster who's like, yeah, I like your team too. We have to import them from Packers and Seahawks, and these are NFC teams. This is bullshit, dude. You wouldn't put on Steelers radio and they're just like, yeah, we got our Ravens resident talk show host here. It's like, no, man, I gotta get booed off the thing. Okay, one caller would come in and just threaten to murder him. It'd be over. But there was
a caller that called into the B Train show and said, do you think it's appropriate to put a Seahawks fan on the air in Phoenix? And like Bertrand Berry was like, we're not going to talk about his fandom. He's a professional. That has nothing to do with how he does his job here on the radio.
Yeah, but like, would you have like a Walmart guy who like loves Target and hates Walmart and wants Walmart to lose, like represent Walmart? He's like, yeah, I'm glad you guys lost. Anyway, my analogy is going to get thrown out the window now. Okay, let's go on to another team. The Niners. Let me take the Niners because I live in San Francisco. You don't, so I know everything about them. So, as a lot of you guys know, that whole Ray McDonald thing was happening last season, kind of during the height of a lot of the domestic violence happening in the NFL. Ray McDonald was also charged with domestic violence. If I remember correctly, his case was dropped. And the Niners actually kept him on the roster, which, from my perspective, literally was like a voodoo curse that they cast on themselves because, like, everybody else, like, sprinted away from anybody with legal trouble last year. So for the Niners to have a guy, like, kind of in that mix who didn't really do it during the whole thing but was still, like, going through the process of it, I thought it was weak that they chose to keep him on the roster. Nevertheless, rape allegations came out against Ray McDonald, and yeah, they cut him after that. There you go, Niners, doing the right thing no matter, even if you get around to it for whatever reason. So it comes out as the case and it unfolds that another one of their linebackers, Ahmad Brooks, who's really probably one of their last really noteworthy names on the defense, except for like Navarro Bowman maybe. But anyway, so he was also indicted for like groping this woman like during like this whatever event. So I guess this chick got like passed or got really drunk at a house party at Ray McDonald's. Said she like fell down the stairs or passed out or something, and then like woke up in like Ray McDonald's bed or some crap. So we'll see what happens with that. It's just really interesting that the Niners keep taking hits like this, and I'm glad to see me now. He's facing 8 years if he's like convicted of this. But anyway, more good stuff coming out of San Francisco. So like Bleacher Report has them at that very dead last on their power rankings. Now, I don't know how fair that is. That's kind of like a little bit of an insult to me because I know that their whole team left, but it's like, let them play a game before you go as far as to like put them at last. I think other teams.
Someone has to be last.
Well, I know someone has to. I think other teams have. You finish 8-8. And you're one season removed from a Super Bowl run. Like, how? Okay,
you're right. No, you're right. There are other teams who have earned that last place assumption.
Yeah, I don't care what the last place assumption. Exactly. I don't care what happened during the off season. You can't just make the assumption now that they're going to be last. Let them prove that to you. Anyway.
Okay, so
that they have no class.
So that's it for NFC West. Let's talk about the NFL in general. I have 2 topics I want to cover. Number 1, preseason. Is it too long? Bruce Arians recently said that if he had a quarterback that was drafted in the first round, he'd probably want 4 games, but he doesn't need them because he has a quarterback who is already ready to go probably by preseason game number 1. He probably could have been regular season, and Carson Palmer would have probably performed just fine. But I kind of feel like it's a good thing that we have 4 games because if we only had 2, we probably would have cut Bradley Sowell before the regular season started. Because we would have had forced cuts. It would have been time to start making your cuts. And you would have had Bobby Massey and DJ Humphries at right tackle, so you probably weren't going to hang on to Bradley Sowell. And I'm glad that didn't happen because we ended up really needing the guy. So what do you think, Lutz? 4 games too much in today's NFL?
I think so in a way. I don't know. I don't really have a good stance on this. I don't care. I think either way you're going to get essentially a similar product, whether they added like 2 games to the regular season or they shorten the preseason. I'm indifferent. I'm with Bruce Arians. Sometimes it works out for you, sometimes it doesn't, but I don't think it changes the game a ton.
I agree. I always am anxious for preseason to start. Now that preseason's here, I can't wait for it to be over. How about this other NFL story? RG3 got hurt again in Washington, and I feel like I believe that RG3's time in Washington is done. I don't think RG3 gets his job back when he returns to work. I don't think that I think that's it for him. I think he's let down the fans there too much, and I think that he
had like a concussion though, right? So I don't think it was like. Is he even missing any time?
Yeah, he might miss some time in the regular season.
But in the regular season for a concussion, dude, are you sure you have this all straight, man? He got a concussion. Like, why would he be missing games a month from now, or like weeks from now? I don't know. I heard he wasn't even going to miss a game. Right?
I don't know actually. Let me find out.
I don't think he's missing any time. I don't like the concussion was just like, oh look, RG3 got banged up.
Oh, was that what it was? So he's not missing games?
That's a big news story. Look, his offensive line is still porous and bullshit. Look, Jay Gruden still doesn't give him the support he needs. And so, yeah, RG3 is done in Washington because Jay Gruden doesn't want that to be his quarterback. He doesn't like that guy as his quarterback. So RG3 will not succeed. Whether or not he can have success at another team, probably likely. He's a very gifted athlete, but we'll see. I don't think he's a bust in terms of his natural abilities. I think he's a bust in terms of his organization. Doesn't work for him.
I agree. Okay, so I have a brief non-NFL story, and I don't have much to say about it. All I want to say is that the Dodgers got Chase Utley from the Phillies and duck the Fodgers is all I'm saying. Lutz?
And Lutz, surprisingly, is actually not a D-backs fan, but a San Francisco Giants fan.
Which I'll accept because it's not the Dodgers. I hate saying that, but at least it's not the fucking Dodgers.
And I live in San Francisco, and I've lived in the Bay Area for about 6 years now. And I was never a Diamondbacks fan when I lived in Arizona. Never followed MLB until I moved to California. Anyway,
that's only because the team nearby where you live kept winning the goddamn World Series.
Okay, don't make me go on the backstory how I started rooting for them.
No, we don't have time for that.
Right, so I'm not a total bandwagon fan. I started rooting for them before they won a World Series. Anyway, going on, Giants going to win the NL West. So that's my prediction.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess nothing more needs to be said. Let's shift gears and get back into some Cardinals discussion. We got a game coming up against the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders coming up here. And what would you like to see coming out of this game?
A little bit. I hope Chris Johnson's available to play. That's pretty much the last thing I'm really looking forward to on the offensive side of the ball. So because of our O-line, honestly, I can't see Bruce Arians wanting to put a lot of pressure on with the run game right now. I think he's trying to take it a little easy on that, on the team ones. So I'm mostly interested in our defense because and in that sense, I'm really interested in the Raiders offense. I'm actually looking to see how the Raiders play, to be honest with you, and hope our defense can, do something against very much developing talented offense. So,
I am interested to see how our O-line does. Bruce Arians said he's going to try Earl Watford at right tackle. Him and Bradley Sowell are going to compete for that right tackle position, which means that DJ was moved to the second team left tackle. And in my estimation, I call that a demotion. DJ was competing for a starting gig at right tackle. He probably wasn't going to get it, but the point is like he was being rotated as a possible starter at right tackle. Now he's a guaranteed non-starter. He's a guaranteed second teamer, which actually segues into a question that was posted by the user on Reddit, Soon to Barman, the same dude who gave us a top 5 from earlier. Asked the question. I'm going to throw it to you, Lutz. Is DJ Humphries the second coming of Levi Brown?
Well, he's bad. Levi Brown. No.
Baddest tackle in the whole damn town.
Yeah. Shittiest tackle in the whole damn town. Yeah, because Levi Brown is like, his last name is sometimes a euphemism for shit. Now, I will say that the thing I don't like about DJ Humphries, and I've told this to you like off air, is his Twitter handle, dude. And like that was the thing that bothered me. I liked everything I heard about the guy. Then when I went to check him out on Twitter and it was at Cash Out Hump, dude, just the cash out. I'm like, man, that sounds so thuggy, dude. That sounds so short term. That's not like I want to play for you for 10 years and just focus and work. Cash out is literally the opposite of work. It means I'm done working. So yeah, I didn't like that about him, and surprise, surprise, he's a freaking knob.
I want to see Coop. I'm curious to see Jonathan Cooper's performance. Jonathan Cooper was a first-round draft pick too, and we've had high expectations from him. And so far, he hasn't seemed to do a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah, but he's been injured. He's not just like
I know, but it's still it'd be cool to see him play like a first-round pick. The final thing is actually what usually is an insignificant, inconsequential position battle every year. But I'm very interested to see this struggle between Philip Sims and Logan Thomas for that last quarterback spot, because Thomas has been looking pretty sorry, and I feel like this upcoming game might be his last stand with the Cardinals. If he doesn't do something spectacular, I don't see how there's a contest anymore.
He ain't gonna. You'd be seeing some of it happening by
now.
No,
I agree.
Yeah, so that's
Philip Sims. I mean, I don't want to say he was like amazing, and plus he's playing against a bunch of nobodies, but Philip Sims didn't look bad at all.
Yeah, he's got really good poise and like pocket presence for being a practice squad QB. You know, he steps up there and then completes plays in the face of.
And that's the other thing is that the Cardinals. Okay, if the Cardinals could keep him on a practice squad, I bet you they would do it. I bet you they would go with Thomas and leave Sims on the practice squad for like development. But if they cut him, he has to clear waivers before they can sign him to the practice squad. And one of the other 31 teams in this league will scoop him up as a third string. He would not clear waivers. He would not make it for us to sign on the practice squad. No way. If we cut Philip Sims after this game as part of like our first cut down to 75, right? Anyways, if we cut Philip Sims on our first cut, there's no way he would make it all the way through the waiver wire before and be still there for us to get as a practice squad.
Gotcha.
Okay. Anyways, that's about
other position battles. I mean, want to point out real quick the secondary, how stacked our secondary is, to the point where, well, obviously we had Drone, Dan Buchanan, kind of filling in on some linebacker duties a little bit,
which is rad.
May even, because of the depth of our secondary, the guy might be playing like a lot of like nickel or just even B linebacker. And what's interesting is like Tyrann Mathieu talking about maybe playing the cornerback position because of our depth at safety. He feels like he's quick enough and strong enough to go and provide something over on a cornerback squad too. Because we're
but who does that leave to play free safety? Maybe Rashad Johnson or something.
Yeah, Rashad's awesome, man.
Okay, so that's probably if Tyrann goes and starts at cornerback opposite Patrick Peterson, then Rashad Johnson takes over at free safety starting, I would assume.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to cover, Lutz?
Well, Jen Welter's been doing a very good job.
Ooh.
That's exciting. I think that we can almost. I would be so shocked, man, if she wasn't a regular season coach. I think that people would cry about that a lot at this point.
Technically, yeah, she's just interning for the preseason, but they could squeeze her into as a regular season coach here. And I bet you that if we don't, another team will. One of the other teams in the NFL will scoop her up because she's proven herself in this preseason as a respectable leader. She's not a large woman either, dude. Like I thought she was going to be some big old like Mondo because she played linebacker. But she's like buff looking, but she's not like that tall. I don't know. I expect her to be taller is what I'm saying.
Yeah, just kind of as a weird aside, Arizona actually does have like a long history of being on the forefront of like I wouldn't say women's rights, but just sort of like the agnosticism to gender. I mean, Arizona has the most, in its short history, already has the most female governors of any other state. So they always are willing to give women a shot there. And so it's really nice to see. I think Arizona might actually kind of embrace that. And I wouldn't expect them to let her walk to another team. I think if she's doing a good job, they would much rather have her there.
Right, even if they have to like create like a special like assistant coaching position or something like that just to keep her on the regular season coaching roster. I'm not sure how that would work. Anyways, we got to wrap because we're pushing 30 minutes. So thank you guys so much for checking it out this week. I'm going to leave you with a Cardinals fun fact. In 1978, I believe, the Cardinals drafted a kicker with their first round pick, 15th overall. They picked up a kicker and left some pretty big names on the table who went on to be much better players. But Yeah, that's what the St. Louis Cardinals used to do. Glad we have the Arizona Cardinals. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week.
Take care. Bye.